Business is not as glamorous as they paint on social media. People make it seem like you get into a business, you put in a little bit of work, and everything happens for you the way it's supposed to happen. Business is literally never ending solving problems. I always tell people like our ambitions and our dreams cost way more than what we have budgeted, because we have these ideas in our heads, but we don't necessarily have the budget to produce everything that we want to do. So
Yeah, I mean, money does solve a lot of problems, even though
it
we.
solves a lot of problems. It
I'm
solves a
like,
lot
let's not
of problems.
sugarcoat this, guys. Let's be real about
No,
this,
no,
right?
no.
I'm so excited for today's conversation because we are talking with someone who is not just building a business, but has gone on into doing community building alongside building a business. And we're going to be unpacking today how to go about doing that as a founder CEO and how you can go about scaling your business, not from just a local perspective, but from a global perspective as well. Joining me on the show today is one of New York City's finest. He is the co-founder of the Fine Wine series. Hello, Dozio. How are you doing?
How you doing? How you doing? Thank you for that warm introduction.
Of course. I mean, as I said, right, there's something so uniquely, particularly special in how you guys chose this name Fine Wine because it's such a timeless name. It's like how do you even think about something of that pursuit? Because how I introduced you was like, one of New York's finest, you fine wine and there can be so many iterations of how that name could be kind of, spread across into different sectors of culture. But so how did you come up with that name? I mean, it's so unique.
So yeah, me and my team, we did events growing up. So we reached the point where we were like, we want to do something a little different. One of my partners was in the wine space, and he was like, let's do something a little bit more wine focused. So that kind of started up the ideas, and then we essentially got together, partnered with each other, and started the brand Fine Wine Series.
Mm. I remember seeing, images of the one that happened, I think it was in New York a couple of months ago, maybe about a year ago. And someone who had been, I think, a vendor at that event was kind of posting on social media. And a friend of mine was sitting down and we said to ourselves, oh my God, like what? How did we miss this event? This is absolutely incredible. And so it's been so incredible to be able to have this conversation with you. And as I tell my audience all the time, every single conversation that I have with a guest, I am learning about the information alongside with them. So everything is nice and fresh and organic in that capacity. So I've got so many questions to ask you because what you've done is incredible. So I hope you're
Work,
ready
work.
for
Oh,
the
let's do
session. Let's begin. I mean, you shared with us that you were doing events, when you were a little when you were younger, and that kind of introduced you into the world of eventing. But what other
it.
background do you have that adds so much value into what you're building now? Because you don't just happen to have that. Something kind of culminates into bringing it and making it become what it is today. So, what is your background?
So my background, professionally, and educationally didn't even really relate to what we ended up doing with Fine Wine Series. It was, I'm Nigerian, so it's kind of like, the typical household, it could be a doctor, engineer, lawyer. So I grew up, in education going towards like the science medical route. Ended up becoming a regulatory affairs professional. Did that for a few years. And then outside of that, just socially, just, was building with the people around me, my peers, my community. We kind of started, like me and my friends who essentially started Fine Wine Series, we went to high school together. So we were part of the same group in high school, which blossomed into us doing events eventually because we wanted to bring the community together in a way. And then we, eventually grew that community to where we are today. So.
That's beautiful. I mean, it's such a beautiful contrast to know that your professional background is completely different, but there's also certain elements about what that could how that difference that could add a lot of value into what it is that you bring or what it is that you have right now. So in and of itself, it's like this beautiful dance between not related to it having value to lessons from it that you can take and bring over. You know what I mean? So that kind
Yep.
of in and of itself is quite interesting. And what would you say your professional background had played a role, or how some of the lessons that you had learned from that before we go into kind of the fundamentals of the business that you have now. How did that
Mhm.
play into equipping you to really for what it is that you do now?
So I think with just going from, like, let's say undergraduate college, studying biology, a lot of that isn't necessarily the topics you're studying, but the challenges you have studying it. It's a very challenging subject in school. Like, I'm sure anyone who's done like organic chemistry understands what I mean, but it's not easy. So like just being able to kind of get through that 4 years of just studying that subject and getting my degree, and kind of regardless whatever came at us, what tests, exams, whatever, we were able to really excel through. And then going into regulatory, where it's more very detail focused. So a lot of it is really understanding regulations and really understanding the requirements that a company needs in order to, prosper or fall into compliance. Because if you don't, there are repercussions. So a lot of that kind of stems similar to like law and understanding the degree of detail necessary to make something happen. And I think being able to apply some of that degree of detail to what we do for One, because that's essentially what we're trying to make sure we get the details, and we're intentional about everything that we do. I think that's where we made where I personally made the connection.
Yeah, I remember going through your website and being like, "Oh my God, they've trademarked this. Like they know how to play." So that with what you're saying now, like that kind of I get it now. It's like this gives me so much context to who you are as an entrepreneur, right?
Yep,
And
yep.
how your background plays a role into that. And I mean, there's a saying that, Niger no go carry last. So as a Nigerian, I'm sure
Yeah,
there's
yeah,
there's
it's
a and I can attest that I've been around so many people from Nigeria, and I'm like, yeah, no, yeah, this is true. This is true. But what is your Nigerian background look like? Did you grow up in Nigeria, or you grew up in the US, and what that dichotomy looks like as well, and this will then tie into from a community building standpoint, right? So for you being Nigerian, what did kind of that shape as well into the context of making you who you are today?
That's a great question. To be honest, it had a lot to do with who I am today, and how we were able to grow this, personally, me and my contribution to it. So I was actually born here, but at a young age, my parents started taking us back home. So we got a good understanding of where we were from, and even down to like the village that we were from. So that definitely played a role in understanding our roots. And one of the biggest things that I remember growing up is just being able to like look to my left, look to my right, and always see like family around me. So I have a lot of uncles, aunts, cousins, all the sorts. So like community has always been like a big thing for me personally, just because that's how I grew up. That's what I grew up in. My parents always pushed us to, remember the family, or always go back and show love to the family, and always move with the family. So community was a huge thing in our family. So I think taking that subconsciously, I always, looked for community wherever I went, whether it was school, jobs, social life, whatever the case may be. So I'm pretty sure that's how it happened.
And there's also something unique about, not necessarily having your roots stemmed in a place, and having kind of been in the States myself, and having to understand what living in an environment that doesn't necessarily speak your language, or where people around you might look different from you, or might have different culture from you, from your home to your friends down the street who might have different types of food that they eat. And so that idea of being different, right, as much as it has its disadvantages, and you feel some type of way that you are different in that space, but there's a beauty about it as well. And I think that's what I always applaud people like yourself, who are able to take that to their advantage, and learn the skills of community building, because you don't have a choice, right? Would you say that was a similar thing to you as well, that you had to build community, you had to learn how to build community, it's something separate from it being a business, but just fundamentally community building itself?
Yeah, I mean I agree 100%. That's really what stemmed from. That's what it is today. Like, a lot of people see, a business, but we also see a community. Like that's what we look at. You know, the attendees, the guests, the supporters, the spot. Everybody is part of this community that we built. You know.
Yeah, yeah. And if someone was to kind of ask you, like, Dozy, like, give me like a one page, like a one, two sentence, 30-second elevator of what is a fine wine series. What is that? What does that sound like?
That's for me. That's challenging, and the reason it's
Yeah.
challenging is because it's continuously evolving, right? But as of today, I would say Fine Wine Series is one of the largest wine cultural festivals and event um, experiences within the country. So,
Yeah. That's fair. I mean, and also creative entrepreneurs are what are they doing in elevators in the first? So that term is not for us. It does not
we're,
work for us. We need to
we're
sit down. Let's
continuously
grab
creating.
coffee. Let's talk about it over 2 hours. Like, what do you mean elevator? So
If I was to break this down into granular, we'd be here forever. Trust me.
yeah, yeah. So let's go into the genesis of the fine wine series. And I love
Okay.
asking this question to my guests of where were you? What was happening? What did you drink a particular different type of coffee that morning when this idea was concepted? Like what was going on? Like where were you? What was happening? I know you have a co-founder, so what was the conversation with the co-founder that then was that decision? Because from that day it became a decision that was going forward. So that particular day, what was going on?
Let's see, 10 years ago, what was happening? We were
Yeah.
in one of our friends' kitchen
Oh.
because we used to hang out. You know, we're from Queens, so we always had like a hangout spot. So we used to hang out at one of our friends who's actually one of the DJs who continuously supports us and plays at our events. We were in his kitchen, Mars. And it was me, my co-founders, and we were just kind of thinking through what we wanted to do next, in terms of like events. You know, one of our co-founders at the time, he was in Philadelphia as well, at Temple University, and we were like, okay, what do we want to do next? What type of event do we want to do? One of the ideas that came up was wine. Like I said, when Justin at the time, he was working within the wine space. Um, so he brought up wine, and we were just talking through it, like, what would this look like? And then he was kind of breaking down, like, what the typical wine experience or wine tasting experience was, which was boring, intimidating, not really fun and flavorful. So it was just one of those situations where he was like, let's do it our way. So we were like, okay, cool. So we ended up partnering all together, and saying we're gonna try this in like a venue space out in Brooklyn. It was a small art gallery. Probably couldn't fit more than 100 people in there, and he was like, he's gonna bring the wines, and we were like, we're gonna do everything else. We're gonna make sure the vibes are there. We're gonna make sure that people know about it, and we're gonna tell everybody. So that's how it really started, essentially.
And I mean, so I'm assuming that before that particular moment, you guys were already doing events, or you already were in the business of eventing, right?
Definitely, yeah, yeah. So
Okay.
we've done events from high school, like ending of high school to where we are today. We've At first it was more so just community style events, like we would just tell our friends we're gonna throw a party here, and then it grew into us wanting to expand past that, where we did more professional events post college. We did college events, we did concerts, we did boat rides and yacht parties, and we expanded into like after work networking events, and we did a lot, which is why we got to the point where like, what's next? You
Yeah.
know.
And before that point, right, having had done all of this kind of eventing and bringing people together, was before that point, was it a business as well, or it was more of like the foundational work of community building and strengthening that before it kind of formalizing into a business?
Yeah, so it didn't start off as a business, and I would say like it was just a group of friends wanting to do something in the community. You know what I mean? Like we just wanted to have fun. We just wanted our community to have fun with us. We know what we wanted to experience, so we wanted to give that experience out essentially. And that's how we started. And then as we grew, as we were like, wait, money's coming in. We got to get a bank account, put it in the bank. Before that, we were storing it in safe boxes. And this is just the thought process we had at the moment, and just being so young. You're not thinking, oh, I can start a business at age 15, 16, 17, you're kind of just like, let's just do what we got to do, and we'll think about everything else later.
Yeah.
But then eventually you get to college, you understand, oh, there's an opportunity for us to start a business. We're over 18 now. We can do things a little bit more formally. You set up a bank account, you set up an LLC. Now you have things that are a little bit more official. And that's really how, we grew into where we are today.
Yeah. And from like a startup or business or founding experience, a lot of people would kind of, I think, of the idea of having to raise capital to start a business, or to have to consider the costs involved. When you guys were doing the event, or when you guys were kind of building this leverage around what it is that you are then going to catapult it to be what it is today, were you guys was it something that was a very capital intensive experience, or it was kind of like we're just doing it, it's going to pay itself, the capital will come up some way? What did that look like as well? Because even though you were not consciously thinking about it being a business, but there was still kind of some costs involved, I would assume. So
Yeah, for sure.
how did you think about that and configure that out in order to have the events be successful in and of themselves?
Yes, I mean, at first, like, it starts off like anything else. Like, everybody's like, how much is this going to cost us? And then we're like, okay, let's just put what we can into a pot and just try to get it to that point so we could produce this thing. So we really started off that way. And then I would say what we did at an early stage that kind of wasn't intentional at the time, but it was just like, guys, instead of us having to put up every time we wanted to do it, let's just leave what we made and then continuously just keep using that to grow it. You know what I mean? And that's really how we were able to start, early, because we probably put up a few years, maybe 2, 3 years of our own money to do things, because everything doesn't always go right. Things happen, whatever the case may be. But eventually, when the foundation's a little more firm, things start to build, and accumulate. So we were able to kind of just keep reinvesting, keep
Yeah.
reinvesting, keep reinvesting into what we were building. So,
Yeah, which I read also the type of business as well that you're in, which, when having conversations with entrepreneurs, that is the sentiment that it depends, right? When we're thinking about startup capital, it really depends on the type of business that you have. Because in a situation like this, one successful event catapults to the next successful event because you were able to make something from the other one that then leads, in your case, accumulates into a reward down the line. And how did you balance, your work, your professional work that you were doing, and ensure that that is also balancing out quite well, and you're not kind of stifling your professional career to what it is that you're doing, in order to grow this thing the right way, right? Because you could kind of half it out and just do it, but to do it well requires time and persistence and attention to detail, as you had mentioned earlier. So how did you do that balancing act, and at what point did you then decide to kind of grow it to the capacity that it is right now?
honestly speaking, like, I'll be real. I think a lot of people expect it to be like a formula or a blueprint to how you do it. I don't think I had one. I think it was
Yeah.
just me understanding that I was passionate about something, me understanding, like, I have a group of people that want to see something happen. And then it's like, you go to work, even sometimes during work, you're making calls for business and stuff like that, or you're sending emails out on the side just to kind of get things through. But once you come home, you have the full devotion to being able to grow this thing. So it's like, go to work, come home, and just dive 100% into what you got to do. But reality was there was no, like, there's no structure to it. It was just, if we know we got to do, we're going to get it done. And hopefully one day this thing that we're building will take over our lives to where we don't
Yeah.
have to go hock in from 9 to 5 every day. You know what I mean? So it
Yeah.
was it was really one of those, like, our persistence was what really drove us to make these things happen. It wasn't, okay, guys, we're going to schedule time between 7 to 10 every day, because things change. Everybody's schedule's a little different. Everybody's life a little different. Some things may not happen exactly how you plan. So it's just making sure you're persistent about it and consistent with how you're doing it.
Yeah, and seeing it through really. How do you find people that get it? right? And from a founding team or from people that you do this with, right? You could have friends around you, family, and people that you vibe with, but being in business
Hmm.
with them is a completely different conversation. So, how are you able to identify that these people I could lock in with and build something with, and you know go all that way with them, even though you might have known them because you might have known other people as well, but you didn't get into business with them. So, what was that sweet spot that you identified within, your co-founder that you were able to kind of take the baton and move together?
Yeah, I think at first it wasn't a specific thing. Like it was just people that resonated together, people that were able to come together. Like we were just friends, you know.
Mm.
So I think that's kind of where it started, and then we both had the passion for wanting to make this thing a reality that we had in our minds. So we were both willing, or not both, but all of us are willing to essentially put the work in to make it happen. So I don't know if it was more so we saw anything, you know, specifically business related within us, but more so we just wanted this to really work. So you realize along the line, you know, sometimes we're not all good at everything as the business becomes growing and reaching new stages. So then that's when you'll seek like outside help for certain things that you may not know, or you might try to get like a third party to come in and assist you guys with certain things. So that's kind of how we were able to do it. I wouldn't say we personally like knew this guy was the perfect person for marketing, or this guy was perfect person for like finance. And, you know, it was one of those things where we all kind of just fell into our lanes as things were building, and we realized, oh, we need to do this, so somebody jumps on that. Oh, we got to do this, somebody jumps on that. And then if we've realized, okay, we might need a little bit more help, we go outward and look for that, you know. So
Yeah.
that's kind of how we were able to get to where we were as a business.
And if you were to think about maybe a particular time in the business, right, where both your co-founder and yourself had a challenge, and there was some sort of test that was able to then really prove to you that this person is someone that I am very happy to have gone into business with. Is there a moment like that that you can recall that was an indicator for you from a challenge that you had, right? Because someone else could be find a challenge and decide this is not for me, right? Even though intentionally they want to do this with you, but a challenge would test that. So do you have a recall of something like that that had happened, and how did you guys kind of figure it out and work it through?
I mean, there's a couple instances. I think the you'll see probably the best in people when things don't happen the way it's supposed to happen.
Yep.
So you
Mm-hmm.
know when you know you guys are planning for the 100, but you only get to like 20, or whatever the case is for whatever reason. You realize, okay, we're at a point where this is something we have to rebuild completely, or put our time into taking back to where we were. And then just off of just that experience, you realize, okay, these are people who are also have that devotion to this. You know, they're also not just when things hard, you know, they'll cop out or they'll leave just because it's hard. They're willing to go through like the challenges with you and understand like, okay, this is a team I can grow with, because they're not just here for the good times.
Yeah.
You know. So I
Yeah.
think one of those moments where, and then obviously COVID, that was huge, because during that time we couldn't really throw events. So now we're over here trying to figure out what we're gonna do, to the point where we ended up pivoting completely, because our main market is New York, but we do host events and experiences in other markets. So we had to pivot completely from our New York market to our Washington D.C. market because of the COVID restrictions. And doing that, we realized, okay, wow, we're able to really pull something off here. You know, where as long as we're able to really shift and pivot, and that's business. I wake up every
Yeah.
day is fixing a problem and pivoting. You know what I mean?
Mm.
So that
That's the
that's what and
definition of it.
that is business. Every day is you're
Yeah.
figuring something out.
Yeah.
But that was our pivot, and we were able to really figure that out and successfully execute. So I would say that was a good one.
Yeah, I think that's such a great way to. No, I wouldn't even use the word test because that's kind of like, it has some sort of exclamation or quotation marks to it. But I think it's a way to cipher through, to understand someone's through line, and through
Hmm.
fundamentally what they stand for, and whether this thing could be something long term, because something in the business that you guys have, which is kind of event based, right? It's time based, and events happen at a particular time. So it requires one to really have a long-term goal and idea and vision for something, because it's not always
Mhm.
going to be smooth sailing for all of those events that are all timely. You know what I mean? So I like that
Yeah.
that your business partner is is soldiering on with you. And how would you
Definitely.
describe your business model, right? And
Mhm.
it's and because it's such a unique type of business that's centered around community. So how do you even define that business model? How do you explain that if again, in that elevator that creative entrepreneurs don't go to? But if someone was to ask you, how would you describe that?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, even though it's event based, it stems heavily on our community, right? At like any other business, if you come out with a product, you need people to buy it in
Yeah.
order to make money from it, right? So we kind of see our events or our experiences, whatever we're putting out there, as our products. So you essentially invest in high level quality products, and you market it to a community that you feel will resonate with, and then you essentially try to get them to convert. That's the model. It's how can we use what we're doing, and build it to a degree of quality that we feel is good for the community we're approaching with this. We like to do things a little different. Like we want to disrupt a little bit. So it's not just, the typical event that you're going to week by week, or, yearly, annually, whatever the case is. And then you build loyalists. You build people who understand the intention behind it, and the quality and the time and the devotion you put into it, and are willing to support you no matter what. So
Yeah.
you have a core foundation into it. But yeah, we've originally we thought about hosting a festival like multiple times in a year. So we used to do 3 festivals in a year. But then we also realized there's times where we might need quiet points in a year to essentially bring in income and revenue. So we started a new event series called High Notes, something a little smaller, but still kind of has the level of elevation and the energy that they want to see. But that's a lower lift, so we're able to produce that more often and take it, in multiple markets throughout the world. So yeah.
Yeah. And I think that is something to learn. And even if you're not in the event space, I think what you guys are doing, there are certain nuggets that one could learn even in their own business. It could be in tech, it could be a service product or a product based business or whatever. But there are certain nuggets in just how you can borrow from what again, from the community standpoint, because a lot of people are trying to figure that out right now, because we are getting into a world where community is at the core, what it is that drives your business. And would you, I think it's a question that at the back of my mind as you're speaking, the idea of community as well as target market, like, do you see those two as those things as two separate things, or do you kind of intertwine them into one fundamentally, or one being the other in a different context? Or how do you see those two terms coming into play?
Um, I think you can do a little bit of both. Community, I feel like, are the people that we have that have whether experienced what we've created or wanted to experience what we created, or just have the knowledge of who we are as a brand and want to just like get themselves involved in what was happening within the brand. Target market, I think, are an opportunity for you to increase or build on your community. Those are the individuals who may not necessarily know too much about what your brand does or who you are, but based on who they are, like that their who that target market is, that this opportunity can build. So if, let's
Yeah.
say for instance, we're doing 5,000 people now, and that's our community, then we know the target market may be 1 million. So you have an opportunity to scale your community from where you are today to potentially who's in the pool.
Yeah, that's a beautiful way of unpacking it. So the loyalist kind of term being closely aligned with community, because those are the people that will stay with you throughout.
They will stay with
Compared
you.
to yeah, yeah, yeah. And what is the brand promise that you have, right? As an event, as a community, as a product that you guys products that you curate, and we see now, as you had explained, that what the events are products. So what is the brand promise that your community comes back for? What do they, hold to as they keep coming back consistently and go about and be advocates and ambassadors for the brand?
Yeah, I mean, overall, and switches depending on what event it is, but overall, as the brand, I think, well, I know like our community has the confidence that we're going to deliver a very unique experience to what they're typically used to. They know that we're going to come through, and obviously it's wine, so they expect something a little bit more elevated from what they're typically going to on a day to day. So they know that we're gonna deliver on that. They know like the venues we choose are gonna be something that they've probably never experienced, or if it is, they're gonna experience it in a different way. They know like we're gonna, book the entertainment that they want to hear, not the ones that we think are, cool or popular or whatever the case is. So we really pay attention to just the detail of the overall experience for the community. And based on their response, we know that they understand that. So that's why they continuously trust us to produce and continuously trust us to create these things because we're doing things a little different, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And I can also kind of imagine that being something that keeps them coming back, because at the back of their minds they know that, right? Even if it's something that they might have not known before, but you guys have them in mind fundamentally when you are kind of thinking through an experience. What does a
Yeah.
typical say kind of month look like planning an event like a festival, right? I know you guys have one coming up in February as well during New York Fashion Week. But what does that look like? What are the fundamental things that you'd say are essential to planning an experience that is unique, that is that again is community based and community, that the community is going to love and enjoy, and it still sees the true line of what it is that your brand is and what it represents. But I'm trying to kind of paint this picture to our audience of what does it look like? Like, what do you have to do? Like, venue,
Very,
there's like
very chaotic.
chaotic. I like that. Yeah.
Very chaotic. It's a lot of ideas, a lot of trial and errors, a lot of brainstorming, a lot
Yeah.
of calls, a lot of meetings. So essentially, like the what we kind of say is the foundation of your experience is going to be the venue space that you choose or the space that you produce it in. You can have everything together, but if you don't have a space to produce this event, it's not going to happen, right? So that's the first thing that you want to make sure that you lock in once you have the concept of what you're trying to do. You have to have a foundational concept and you have to have a venue. Once you have those two things, now you can build this experience around just, okay, cool. Because specifically for the ball, right? The way we kind of came to the idea was we wanted to do something in the winter that was grand. That wasn't as, like a high notes, which is a little smaller, but we wanted to do something a little bigger in the winter so people can remember us throughout the entire year. And we were like, okay, what if we did like a ball, like a formal ball, dress up, that was this foundational concept of it. And we were like, okay, cool. Where can we host a ball in the winter that isn't your typical like ballroom? So we, scour the internet. Everybody's looking for different venues. We find this iconic like landmark, a old bank that was abandoned, that's just there. That's now owned by a company that owns the Barclays Center. We make calls, we reach out, we set up meetings, we do site visits, and then you're like, okay, this is gonna be a great fit, So you lock in contracts, you make payments, and in the midst of all that, you're obviously still planning. So we're at the same time, you're also planning out the concept for this winter ball. You realize, okay, what's the best time to do it? New York Fashion Week is February, perfect. We're going to be in New York. Everything works out. How can we turn up the fashion just a little bit? What can we do to add just a little element of uniqueness to just this ball that most people have never been to? Let's add a masquerade theme to it. Wow. Okay, cool.
Everybody
Because of the
masks.
venue. Yeah, because
Yeah,
the
yeah.
venue, it complements it. The venue gives off this old school, like, how do I say it? Artisanal, like it's a very cool, like like it takes you back in time, and it kind of gives this
Yeah.
mysterious feel to it. So the theme of the masquerade complements that, you know. So you build on the theme now. Okay, we have the theme, we have the venue. What elements can we add to the experience to just create this full on from A to Z experience? So now you're throwing out ideas, everybody's throwing out ideas, you're checking budgets to make sure that these ideas fit within the budget. And then that's really the process of building this event. And then you start to lock things in. You lock acts, you lock production meaning like audio, visual, what you want the space to look like, feel like, sometimes even smell like, because you want to kind of invoke like all five senses. What do you want,
Mhm.
people to experience? You want people to eat or not? Okay, cool. Let's do past hors d'oeuvres. What do we want them to eat while they're there? So how can it kind of pair with the event theme and the overall feeling of the event? You don't want people just sitting having a full meal because this is a ball. People want to be active. You want them to, connect with other people within the space. What brands make sense for this event? So now you have to think about potential partners and sponsors. Who can we reach out to? Who do we have connections to? Who do we have to cold email? So it's a lot
Wow.
of just elements to it. And then it's the
Yeah.
marketing piece. How do we roll this out? How do we make sure our audience doesn't just go on, Instagram and TikTok and see a flyer and you scroll past it? We have to make sure it's something that will hit, something that people will repost and talk about, throw in their group chats, all the things, you know.
And from the outside, right, from the outside it looks like, oh, it's just an event, but as you're going through the list of things that are considered from a team's perspective, now it gives context to us as an audience to say, oh my god, I respect this event as I'm attending it a lot more, because now I understand what it took for this to happen, right? And as you're explaining, I'm like, I can already imagine like it's a lot of work that goes into
Yeah.
that. And how big is your team currently at the moment? You mentioned a couple of people that you have to, that come into play into making all of these, brainstorming and decision making. So, how big is your team currently at the moment, that puts everything together?
I would say on average on a day to day about 8 to 10. Closer towards the
Wow.
event, you might get all the way up to like 14, 15.
Wow, that is, I mean, relatively thinking about, how, again, from the outside, it's just like, it's just an event. Like, what is all these people doing? You know what I
Yep.
mean? But again, it helps us respect a lot more, because now you're like, okay, so a lot of people had to come into a room and had to make a decision on an idea, because that in of itself is something else, because everyone could have something, or think it's going to be better in this way, or think this one looks better, or that one is going to be a better experience. So having to have all of those, ideas come into play, and one final one being one that, we get to experience, is something as well that is a lot of thought process goes into it.
Definitely.
So again, respect to you guys.
Thank you,
And
thank you,
from
thank
from
you.
from a creative standpoint, right? Because you mentioned kind of the operational elements and the operational, kind of guideline that you have to go through to make the event happen. But from a creative standpoint, what through line would you say your events have? Right? Is it? Do you also have to think about branding a lot more, extensively? You mentioned production. What part
Hmm.
of that is your business? Is that, or rather, even from a percentage standpoint, how much percentage is that your business, or is that part of your brand experience? Into ensuring
That's
that, yeah,
it's a very significant percentage of the business, right?
yeah.
Because like I said, we're very intentional with how we do things. So it really starts with how, like, when we start planning for the event, what the and just to kind of backtrack a little bit too. So every festival has its own theme. Like they're not all like they're everyone is different. We've for the last 10 years had different type of themes for each festival that we've done. So what we do is it's kind of like the Met Gala kind of theme, or you might think of like one of these large festivals that continuously change their themes, because one thing that we've realized at our early stages, we want people to continuously show up and feel like they're in a whole new yes, the foundation of the experience is the same, but the feel of it, the what you wear, what you see, what you feel, like everything is different every time. So you wouldn't want to miss one because it would be completely different from the last one you experienced. So that plays a lot in the creative space because it's like, what do we want to in vogue in people this time, or what do we want to create for people to experience this time? And a lot of the themes are like really playful. We try to take playful themes and just elevate them, make them a little sexy, just make it something that people would want to do. We've done everything from like a timeless elegance, meaning like a take people back in time kind of vibe, um, to an enchanted garden, to wine valley, to like paradise where everyone's wearing cream and browns. So we've taken people through different themes. And it kind of stems from, okay, how do we feel? And this is the creative side and the thought process is like, how do we feel our audience is at right now? Where are they out at in life right now? What are they experiencing? What are they going through? Is it, euphoria? Is everybody happy? Is everybody making money? Or is it, everybody's going through hardship and everybody's, going through some sort of challenge? It's been a tough year on a community. Like, what is happening? And we kind of guide, that through it. Something like the Masquerade Ball, it's been a crazy year. Everybody's been going through, one thing or another. There's tons of layoffs. So what can we do in the winter time to kind of invoke some sense of like play, to kind of like escape that, throw on a mask and kind of like feel like somebody a little different from who you were, yesterday, because you might be going through something today, but you have this veil over your face to kind of reshape who you are. So it's kind of like that, and that plays a lot in the creative space because it starts with the concept of what do we want people to feel, and then you build out this creative concept, and then it plays into how we roll things out and how we speak. Even like coming to the copy of the emails, everything is a little bit more poetic and mysterious with this event, versus the previous ones, or the rollout where the video might look more cinematic because we're shooting this sort of a video like concept. So it's very creative.
And I mean, yeah, I could see the value of that as well. And because events are fundamentally an experience, so the creative juices from you guys are what we take and what we experience. So it's important to kind of see that. And what would you say is an average for the festivals that you guys have, or even the other series as well? That's a lot smaller. Like, what is the average size and amount of people that you manage? At an event on an average basis.
Yeah, annually for the festival, we probably see anywhere between like 3 to 5,000 people. For the smaller events like the High Notes, which is like we say is the world greatest wine party, you might see anywhere between 300 to 600 people per event. And then we have
Wow.
other more intimate, experiences that we curate privately sometimes and tastings and stuff like that. So.
And how do you manage? Like, how have you had a strategy on how to go about managing, people of that magnitude? Because that's a lot of people, right? It's not a room anymore. It's kind of something a lot more bigger than that. So how
Yeah.
have you kind of gone on to strategizing even from that perspective to ensure that even the people there are coexisting with each other to ensure that everyone has a great experience, because that the people will people at the end of the day, or would you would you say that if because of the wine idea of it associated with the prestige of wine makes it a little bit elevated so that the audience themselves act a little bit appropriately or different? Yeah,
Yeah.
how do you approach that?
Being honest, in terms of just the overall audience behavior, we haven't had much issues there. I think, like you said, because this event is, marketed as elevated and it's, centered around wine, that being the foundation, people are coming to learn about wine or explore the wine space or experience wine in a different form, fashion, or format. People come correct. Like they come, I think, understanding what they're coming into most times. So we don't have issues of, any like disrupt, like anybody disrupting behavior or like anything like that. Um, like we even tell sometimes like security, you don't even have to. You're gonna have a like easy night. Like you're gonna be fine. You're just here because the state requires over a certain amount of people for you to be here. But we know our audience just understands the assignment at this point. Like they know what they're showing up for, and they're showing up the right way, each time. So, luckily, we've been blessed with that. So we haven't really had much issues there. In terms of just overall management, it's understanding kind of like the years of just seeing how the people have experienced the event and what they've taken from it. What we always do surveys so we understand like what they like, what they didn't like. So we'll ask those questions, and then we also pay attention during the event to understand what people are doing at certain times and how many people are showing up during certain times. We know for our audiences for the festivals and stuff, they're coming early. They want to experience that 3 hour wine tasting for the first 3 hours, so they'll be there as soon as the doors go open. So, but we also understand that the majority of people will most likely come during that last hour from 5 to 6. So understanding that, you kind of understand what do we want to have people experience during these times, how many people are going to be in a room to experience it, and how do we want their experience to continue building from that point.
I think the event that I'd seen, I was probably going to be one of those people who came after everything. But when we calculated the time, we're like, it's too late, like to get there on time. So it was kind of like, but again, I think it's such a beautiful thing to even understand your audience so thoroughly, to understand their behaviors. And it's kind of like a psychology. It's kind of like it's like you guys are also psychologists to some degree, because you have to understand human psychology in depth, because you are dealing with humans, exponentially, at a single time. You mentioned the idea of expanding to different markets, which a lot of people have a desire for. A lot of entrepreneurs see that for themselves and want that for themselves, but being
Yeah.
able to do that takes a whole lot of courage, because you're stepping out of New York, which is a completely different audience type, to say DC or any other part of the US, or even outside in another country. So what did that look like? Of course, you said it came from a challenge, which was COVID initially in the beginning, but then what did that experience, taking this through to other types of markets, different types of audience, translate to, in the business as well?
That's a great question. It was a desire to just expand the experience. Like we wanted, and it also came out of demand as well, I will say, because we were hosting the festival in New York for quite some time, and then we would have people from like Philadelphia say, "Hey, you guys need to bring it back," or people say from Washington D.C. saying, "Hey, we want this here," or people from Atlanta, "Hey, you guys need to bring this." So we've had like people probably find us on social media, leave comments on our like posts saying, "Hey, we want this in our market." So we played around with the idea of doing something there, and you're not gonna just try to replicate exactly what you're doing, to that degree. You have to test the markets out. So like for instance, when we first went to Washington D.C., what we were doing in New York at that time was about like 1,500 people to, I think, 1,500 to 2,000. When we went to Washington D.C., we decided to start at like 600 people, you know, and that sold out within like 3 days. So we were like, okay, this is a market that wants this product. So when we knew COVID was an issue, or when COVID was an issue at the time, and we knew we tested this market previously, we were like, what other market can we take this to that's not New York? And DC was the viable option just based off what we knew that, we did there. And it always adds to the experience that the core market that you have are willing to travel. One thing that we saw at the early stage was that
That's
New
good, yeah.
Yorkers loved what we were doing in New York. So they were like, if you guys are going to Washington, we're coming too. If y'all are going to Atlanta, we're going too. If y'all are going here, we're coming.
Loyalists.
The Royalists, I'm telling you.
Yeah, yeah.
And like I said, every theme was different for the festival. So you're able to create a different experience for them in a different state. But now you're also creating a new community in that state. One, the people who are traveling in benefit because they see a bunch of people within their community that they've never met. Two, the people who are there in that specific market are seeing new faces that they've never met. Because, when you're going outside, if these are people who typically go out weekly, they know everybody in the room already, or they at least seen them before. So
Yeah.
now they're seeing a mix of people within the space. So it adds the overall just value of the experience.
Mm. And again, like people are again, fundamentally different, right? Even from a cultural standpoint. I know in the US there's like 10 different accents as well that you'd be able to find, just because based on where you are, etc. So would you say that then what the experience is what people were able to put their differences aside and put everything aside for their differences and come together to have this one experience? And what about what you guys were doing was universal to some degree? Like you being from New York, you understanding that market, you understanding
Yeah.
culturally what is relevant, etc. But stepping into a different market, what did that exercise look like from an expansion standpoint? Yeah.
That's a good question. Honestly speaking, I think the differences are what adds the value overall, right? Because someone in New York and someone in Atlanta have two completely like different, well, not completely different, but social life is a little different. The music that they listen to is slightly different. The accents are clearly different. Um, so one, the difference is I say they add value because if I'm in a room and I'm a New Yorker in that room and somebody from Atlanta approaches me and they hear my accent, they're like, "Oh, you're not from here." So automatically in their mind, they're like, "Oh, this event brought out different people from different places." So this is like an opportunity for me to connect with somebody in a different state now, not just in different parts of my city, but I can connect with somebody in New York. So maybe if I'm ever in New York, I could connect with this person. So that adds value overall. Then because again, social life is very, consistent across like the weekends. If we're coming in with more of a New York play, like we have our DJs flying as well. So our DJs are playing, like let's say Canal, he's playing a New York set or something that's popular in New York. Atlanta people may not hear this set typically, so they may not, typically hear this. So they're happy that they're getting a breath of fresh air, a fresh breath of fresh air because it's a new sound that they're hearing, and we understand the market well enough to know this is gonna work. Like everybody listens to R&B, everybody listens to certain type of hip hops and stuff like that. So we know even though this is a New York, sound, they'll resonate with it because they've heard it sometime in their life. They just may not hear it regularly today because they may be more into like the southern sound or trap music, whatever the case is.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
understanding that, and then you're giving them their local DJs and their local entertainment, so they're still getting the fix that they need in terms of just what they want to hear. But it's a blend now, so now it creates this more unique experience because you're getting a full on blend of just different sounds. And you always want to just tap in with who's local. And sometimes I'll even just call my cousins out there and be like, "Hey, what are people out here doing? Like, what do you guys like? What do you guys don't like? Like, what's happening?" And it's that simple. I think sometimes we over complicate the idea of market research sometimes where
Yeah.
we got to get an agency to find out what's happening. No, sometimes just talk to people that you know that are in those markets or in those places and find out what they want to do.
Yeah. I always have this kind of notion of to go global, you have to go local, right? To fundamentally
Hmm.
understand the local of that global idea. And it's quite interesting. Like I used to be in Atlanta for a bit before heading over to New York, and there was
Okay.
such a different type. Like it's just like you'd hear this one song that used to play everywhere. You'll be like, why are you guys playing this one song? I think it's Tevin Campbell, like Can We Fall? I know, can we
Yeah.
talk for a minute? I'll be like, come on,
Yeah.
guys, like and then you go to New York and you hear a completely different vibe. So that in of itself is I appreciate again what you guys have been able to do to create a consistent experience, even though it's in different markets. And how many markets would you say you currently are in the US right now? What does your international expansion also look like to taking this global as well? Yeah.
I always forget this number. New York, Atlanta, DC, Chicago, Texas, Austin, LA. So probably in about 8 markets right now, in
Oh,
the U.S.
yeah.
Nine, Miami.
Okay.
So we've been to 9 markets domestically, and internationally we've done one, which is South Africa, Cape Town.
Ooh, yay, that's my city.
Yeah, that was a great experience. Like
That's
again, like just
yeah,
loving the I think one thing I've found is wine is a great foundational piece.
yeah,
Like no matter where you go in the world, you will find somebody who loves wine. And because of that, you're able to connect with them. And because of
yeah.
that, you're able to share experiences. So it's really dope.
And I'm happy that you guys came to Cape Town before Joburg because I am like, I have a big rivalry with the Joburgers. I'm like, we're
Really?
better than you
Why?
guys. I always like
What?
Cape Town is better than Joburg. So
That's the
you
thing.
guys, you guys coming here first again is another. I'm gonna be like, Fine Wine Series came to Cape Town first, so that's why we better.
Uh,
And what did even again from an expansion standpoint, like I'm curious what did that look like, right? Does it feel different? Does it look different? And like how did you guys curate that? How did you even decide what was the first touch point outside of the country?
right?
Um,
That's good.
yeah.
A lot of things are just trial and error, like, or just trials, right? I think at the time we were going to or planning this event, before we even began planning it, like I frequently go back to like the continent, whether it's Ghana,
Hmm.
Nigeria, whatever the case is. And then this year there was just been a lot of chatter about going to South Africa. So I'm like, okay, that'd be cool. Like I've never been to South Africa. I'd love to go there. And it really started as an idea of like, I just want to go experience South Africa. Like I
Yeah.
want to go when, people are saying that it's the right time to go, apparently. So that's how it started. And as you start to look into it, and we just things just happen. Like life is amazing because the dots connect as you grow.
Hmm.
And even before that, we were looking into South African wine. So like we started building a little bit relationships out there. And when we finally said we're coming out there, they were like, "Why don't you guys bring the event out here as well?" And we were like, "Oh, what does that look like?" And then, we'd connect with certain people out there. They'd be like, "Oh, you should probably, if you guys are coming out here, use this venue. I can connect you with that person." Then you get the connection, the contact, you start the conversations, you look at the budgets, you're like, okay, this is a viable entry point. Like this makes sense for what we're about to, experience or spend. Whether it fails, whether it passes, like at least we know we tried. That's the whole thing. And, as the plan starts to get put into place, you start to understand what you want to do. Then you start realizing, okay, we can hit certain people up in certain markets, and just start conversations to find out what type of vibe they like. Who's gonna be out there, who is out there.
Yeah.
You just start building it from there. So that's really how it started, and then we just said, let's do it. Like it was just one of those things where it's like South Africa has it's a major wine market
Yeah.
in the world. Obviously, they have a lot of the people that we feel like are in our community out there as well that want to experience these things. And then you also have a lot of people flying in internationally as well. So even for like the entertainment lineup, we had people who were playing from London, people from South Africa, people from the U.S., like in different parts of the U.S. as well, not just New York. So you put all that together, and it works.
I mean, yeah, I love that. I'm just even more of a fan because that being kind of the entry point into the continent, even from starting it from the bottom, going all the way up in and of itself, is something that's quite unique. And how do you kind of decide on all the other stakeholders, right? You mentioned a little bit earlier on that from there's the attendees, there's another section of people that you engage with, which is the vendors, the people who
Mhm.
are part of that ecosystem as well, who showcase their products or showcase their wines, etc. So how do you cipher that as well? How do you cipher picking and discovering and connecting with those people to ensure that they plug into the ecosystem well enough to be also a great add to the consumer, which is the audience that are buying the tickets and are coming to the events?
Yeah, I mean, it really depends on like who's available sometimes, and what they have within their portfolios, and how like willing they are to work with us and how willing we are to work with them. So there has to be some sort of a synergy between both brands to make it make sense. Like for our festivals, we get a lot of people that reach out to us. We reach out to a lot of people because at the end of the day, with the wine space, it's very, I'm not gonna say skewed, but when it comes to like minority or black brands and women owned brands, like they don't necessarily get as much highlight as the other, brands that are out there. So we try to do our part to make sure like, okay, if we have thousands of people showing up for our, brand or our experiences yearly, we want to put the right brands that deserve recognition in front of them. So we work with
Yeah.
these people to say, okay, what do you guys have? Like, what are you guys trying to do? What are your goals for the year? Can that align what we're doing? And just putting that together because we have an audience of people who are curious, who are ready to learn, who want to experience wine in different facets. So, like, our goal is really just to get these things in front of them so they can experience it themselves and say, I love this, or hey, maybe I like this one, or I don't like this one, or whatever the case is. But at least they have a chance, you know?
Yeah. And from an educational standpoint, kind of how do you partner with those with that section of the ecosystem, right? The vendors and the people who are bringing their products to the play. How do you educate consumers? How do you educate the audience about the value of wine and what it is and how it's meant to be, served and consumed, et cetera, to make then the experience more than just going there, but then taking some sort of knowledge
Yeah.
and insight out of that as well.
I mean, remember when I said like our people, like they show up correct? I
Yeah.
think they understand the assignment every time. Like one of the best things about the community we have is like they're so open to learning. They're so curious. I think there's been this wall placed in front of the wine industry for so long where they kind of made people feel like if you don't know this, then you shouldn't be here, kind of feel.
Yeah.
Whereas we're kind of breaking that wall down and we're kind of like, we are letting people know, like, listen, whether you know nothing, a little bit, or a lot, this is a space that you can come to and feel comfortable being here. You can ask as many questions as you want. You can try as many wines as you want. You can figure out what you even like in real time without feeling the need to feel like that pressure over your shoulder. If someone's watching me and like I feel like I don't. They feel like I don't know what I'm doing. So we make sure that that comfortability is there. And even before the event, we let people know, like, look, come here to support these brands, come here to learn about the brands, come here to actually indulge in the wine. Because at this point, this is what you're here for. So, and we, on a vendor side, will communicate to them. No one wants to be sitting in the classroom today.
Yeah.
Our audience are young, they're vibrant, they're fun, they're energetic. They want things light but they want to be put onto things. They want to be educated, but they just don't want to feel like they're in the classroom. So make it fun, make it educational, but just keep it light. So a lot of times it's actually the attendees approaching the vendors and asking them questions. So we get a lot of that, and I think that's the beauty of it because they're so curious. Now the vendor feels less pressure of trying to prove themselves as a brand. They get to actually just answer these questions and be truthful and transparent about what they have and what they produced. So
Yeah, because again, like as you had said, the section of the kind of the wine space in of itself has a prestige associated to it. So many who might want to enter or understand that space a whole lot more might see that as a barrier. But it's beautiful that you guys are opening that up to say that this community could be a lot more broader, and the educational element to it could be presented in a fun and an exciting way as well, right? But there's also another sector of this ecosystem that is very, very foundationally important, which is the sponsors and the investors and the people who bring the money, because we need the money to make the things happen, right? So how does at what point did you guys start seeing a consistency in getting those types of partnerships? Did you have to have a certain metric and a certain KPI that then had them coming to you, or like share with us that aspect of it, which is again fundamentally important.
no, and that's a great question. And I'll be completely honest to say, like, we're still navigating that space. Like, one thing I've learned throughout like the years of doing this, is that a lot of times you're not playing in a space where, we control the narrative. So a lot of times you're fighting to get these people to understand what you're doing, you know, because we're not necessarily always the one in power to sign checks and sign off on agreements and stuff like that. We have to have people advocate for us. We have to advocate for ourselves and really get in front of these people and really pitch them both the numbers, the audience, the benefit, the ROI, all of that. And sometimes even after doing all of that, they still may not understand what you're trying to do or understand the true value of what you've created. So I'm not gonna sit here and act like we figured it out or we have consistent sponsorships and partnerships coming through the gate because we're still struggling sometimes to get these people to understand what we're trying to do so they can create that meaningful value. But one of the things that I will say has been an unexpected benefit of it is that you build your business model around not expecting that, right? Because it's more difficult for us to get these things, we don't rely on them to be able to do these things. So now you're building a business model that's based on solely if this doesn't happen, how do we still thrive? And with that type of business mindset, with that type of model, whether or not they show up, you still are able to produce what you're able to produce. Granted, it's not at the level that it could be, but it is still at a level that your audience sees the value in it. So I'll say like we're still struggling to get these people to understand what's happening out here. And a lot of brands, within our community don't have the necessary resources to fund what we're trying to do sometimes. So we have to reach out to the others. And with that, it comes the conversation of do you understand the value that we are bringing to you? Not as, a festival, but as an overall brand. And this is
Yeah.
what's going to happen if you work with us.
Because ultimately, working with you guys, even out far and beyond just the event, the brand that you've created and built, that also has its value in and of itself, right? So the
Mhm.
association and the partnership with just you guys, just as individuals as well, adds a lot more value to the partnerships as well. So,
Yeah.
I mean, that's something that I think is so fun, important. And what would you say you are looking then for, from potential people who are sponsors, from potential, supporters, investors within not just the events, but like the brand in of itself. Is a
Mhm.
business like that, like this, something that you say is open to things like investors and and VCs coming into the mix and angel investors? Like, is it structured for things and conversations like those, or would you say it's fundamentally for the events and the brands seeing value in that market, in that audience for that particular event?
Oh no, so to the first point, I think it's open to just anybody, like not just anybody in particular, but anybody who can align with what we're trying to do. It's not just event based and brand based. It's VCs can get in, investors can get in. These are opportunities for them to really make good on their money, in my opinion. Because at the end of the day, like when you strip down any type of business past the personality, past the product, past anything, everything has like every business has one thing in common. One, it needs money to come in, and it definitely gets money going out.
Yeah.
So money is definitely necessary to make a lot of these things happen. And one thing I've realized, that we've had to kind of cope with is like the more money you have, the more impact you're able to make. Whether that's bringing on the right team, whether that's hiring the right people, whether that's producing a much better quality event, working with specific venue spaces, or working with specific artists or entertainment, whatever you can think of. If you have more money, you'll be able to make it better, you know. So I think that's one thing that people fail to realize is like, yeah, you can do exactly what you need to do, with what you have, but it always pays to get more money so you can make it better.
Yeah. And I like having these conversations, particularly with creative entrepreneurs and the creative sector in general, because we kind of positioning ourselves as businesses is
Mm,
that those types of conversations we should be open to them far and beyond the passion side of it and the idea side of it, right? But fundamentally, what is the business underlined all of it? And you mentioned
mm,
earlier on that the business model that you've structured allows for you guys to be able to still exist without, investors, or rather, sponsors, etc. So, I would assume that you have a very strict and very stringent budget, to be able to work with numbers pretty well.
Yeah.
How do you balance that out, right? Because there could be something that could kind of pop up and be an expense unexpected, or how have you kind of trained your muscles and to be able to work it through and make it work and work it out.
That's real. I mean, to be honest, like that's part of the business. It's like trying your best to keep within budgets, creating budgets to understand like this is what we have to play with. If somebody jumps on board as a sponsor, we have a little bit more now. But ultimately, it is very tight when it comes to like the budget itself. I always tell people like our ambitions and our dreams cost way more than what we have budgeted. Because we
Mm,
have these ideas in our heads, but we don't necessarily have the budget to produce everything that we want to do. So a lot of times you are working within very tight budgets and, very stringent amount allocation. So what it also teaches you sometimes is like how can we try to make something happen without the amount of money we need, right? So like for instance, we are very self-sufficient. I'll say that like we are very self-sufficient. Like on our team, we have a DJ, we have a production team internally, like one person who can actually produce an entire event based on like what he's been having to navigate with tight budgets,
mm,
marketing. I'm a graphic designer. I've learned that since I was like in college. So there's certain things you navigate and you learn and you acquire, you build skill on just because you couldn't afford to hire somebody out to do it. For the first couple of years, up until maybe like 2 years, 3 years ago, we were managing social media ourselves, meaning making the post, designing it, posting, checking the analytics. We were doing everything. So it gets to a point where it builds the foundation of the business because now you're self-reliant. So you don't have to rely on agencies to come in and give you a production sheet to six figures to produce when you could maybe do it for half that price because you know all the vendors, you know the fabrication person, you know the designer, you know this person. So you can really create it yourself. It just takes more time and effort. Granted, if we had the budget, it can go way easier, but because you don't, you have to figure it out.
yeah. I mean, money does solve a lot of problems, even though
It's also a lot of problems. It's
I'm
also
like,
a
let's
lot
not
of problems.
sugarcoat this, guys. Let's be real about
No,
this,
no,
right?
no. If you have the
Yeah.
opportunity to get the money, get the money.
Yeah.
That's the message.
Yeah. And if you were to kind of then think about essentially what the goal of what you're trying to really do, like what is the bigger picture of it all? From the fine wine series to everything else to also the brand in and of itself or the business of it. What does it look like
Hmm.
in a grand scale, would you say?
Um, like I was saying before, like I think that evolves over time, but as of right now, there's a few major goals for the brand. Like I said, the community is extremely important. Like being able to provide our community with these experiences that are unique, that are elevated. Like we have this slogan, it's for the lovers of the finer things.
Oh.
Like we know our community, we know how hard they work, we know nothing is easily given to them, we know where they are in life. So we feel like our community deserves the finer things in life as well. So we use this as an opportunity to create an experience that provides that to them. And then two, the industry that we're in is wine and spirits. And it's a very interesting industry. The more you dive deeper in it, you realize how uneven the playing field is. So whether it's us advocating for the brands that we represent, we're gonna do that to make sure we get them in front of the audience, get them to get the necessary resources that they need, or do whatever we can to help support those brands. But then also disrupt the entire industry as a whole. Like wine as an industry is a pretty old industry. I'm talking
Yeah.
about like 45 years and up is typically where you would see most quote unquote wine drinkers. But our audience is 25 to 45. So we're very completely different in terms of what they're typically used to seeing. So we're here to disrupt that, let you know like all that stuff that y'all thought made people wine drinkers isn't really a reality because these
Yeah.
people they drink wine regularly, whether they're at a house watching TV, just after a long day, going to a restaurant, at a bar, they drink wine. So it doesn't matter what you think. We're showing you that there's something different out there. And if you don't want to play along, we'll find somebody who will, and we will all win together.
That is amazing, and I kind of see it. I really see this idea of bringing people together over something. So, again, as you said, it's been around for I think for time as
Yeah,
far
yeah.
far back as we can imagine and think. It's always been there. So it's from an educational standpoint. There's nuances of it that could be translated and kind of passed on, etc. What does your global expansion plan look like? You mentioned you're in the US right now, 9 states you mentioned, you're in South Africa. Where's the
Yeah,
next
yeah.
stop? Where are you going to be going? It could even be in the future that you've always kind of thought and hoped for.
So yeah, one of the things that I always say is like right now we're one of the largest wine cultural festivals in the States, but soon to be global. Because again, this isn't something that people in the US just do. Like it's
Yeah.
not something that they just indulge in or a space that they just want to see. Like this is something that I think people around the world want to, the whole idea of the finer things in a wine, like people around the world enjoy those things. So whether it's us building our base in South Africa and just continuously growing that audience out there, to us going to Europe or Spain, I mean, Spain's in Europe, but like countries within Europe,
Yeah.
where we know we have a large community as well, or going somewhere in South America, where there's like the same amount of, prominence when it comes to wine, and the audience is also out there. So I definitely see us expanding globally over the next couple of years, just testing out the waters and seeing who's resonating with what we're trying to do and just building with them.
Yeah, I mean, the slogan of the show is going global. So, like, we gotta mention it. We gotta talk about the global
We're going
strategy,
global.
okay?
We're going global. That is a fact.
And I
That
know
is
that
a fact.
on your website, you guys do have a store. You guys have a couple of products that you have listed.
Mhm.
Do you see yourselves ever getting into the business of curating and creating your own brand, like your own wine brand? Like, do you see that being something, the fine wine brand, or like, have you thought about that from a product standpoint
Yeah.
or from a diversification standpoint to what the business is
Mhm.
right now?
Yes, it's definitely been a thought. We have a lot of the foundational pieces to make it happen. I'll be honest with you. It's just about right timing and right partners that'll make it make sense, and it can definitely happen. Outside of just the wine, just the entire ecosystem of just the wine lifestyle and the
Yeah.
wine industry. Like we are going to really build on it. Like even like the apparel that we released, whether it's the embroidered knit sweaters or the hats that we've released or the wine glasses that we released. We're gonna build around the entire ecosystem. So it's whether you're experiencing it with us at our events, at home, outside, you have a little piece of the brand that you could take with you wherever. Well, we even get into travel. Like I said, there's a
Yeah.
bunch of wine countries, a bunch of vineyards throughout the US, taking people to experience wine in a different capacity. It's something we're looking into doing as well. So travel space is open as well. So yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot.
And I like the idea of stemming from like an ecosystem building point of view than just kind of being singular in your approach. Obviously,
Mm,
foundationally, you start at some point, but you then grow and diversify, but within the
yeah.
ecosystem, right? Because everything that you're mentioning, I see it. Okay, from travel to products to different types of experiences to merge to etc. So those all
Mhm.
things that still fit into this bucket of this ecosystem that could really well
Yeah.
serve the consumer as well, right? They would like fine wine, so why not give it to them?
Yeah, that's real. And we've heard it a couple times, so it may happen sooner than later. Let's see how it
Yeah.
goes.
Okay. Well, we'll be on the lookout for that. Definitely, looking forward to that. And I know that as well. You have another, business that you've co-founded. It's called a tea shop. A little bit about that. Let's kind of tap into that a little bit before I say goodbye. What is kind of that all about? What is that entrepreneurial venture? And how has that been? How has that experience been for you?
It's been a learning curve, I would say. It's completely different industry. That one is more a custom apparel business, so we bring in the modern technology of like today's day and age mixed with the traditional sense of custom apparel print shop. We're trying to make it more convenient, more customer focused, guide you throughout the entire process. Because sometimes when you order things online, you may get it and you're like, I don't know what this is. So we want to make sure that yes, you can still have the convenience of ordering something online or not directly going into in store, but you have the guided approach so where you do get something, the quality is there and it's exactly what you wanted. So
Yeah.
that's what T Shop is, and we're building that up now and just really leaning more into the marketing of it because a lot of custom apparel businesses don't necessarily have good like branding or stories. So we're gonna create one, or we are creating one currently that will have that story, that brand personality, that overall just warmness to it that makes you feel the connection.
Yeah. Again, this adds context to us understanding you as an entrepreneur, right? And understanding kind of your framework into how you think about business and how you structure business as well, which is fundamentally what this conversation, hoping that our audience is going to be able to get that and understand the nuances of building a business of your type. If you were to kind of give an entrepreneur who is in a different sector, right, whether it be tech, whether it be product, etc., about community building, because that kind of is a struggle for many people. Like, what is that one true line and what is one advice that you can give to an entrepreneur, founder, someone in the startup world, an executive who's getting into that space, who's really trying to figure out and understand how to go about building community and how to go about ensuring that from what incredible brand that they've got and that they're building, but at the core that people are at the center of it as well, because you've had that experience, so you'd know how or what advice to share.
Definitely. I would say start if you're really truly looking to build community, start with you and the people around you. Because at the end of the day, in order to understand the community, you have to be a part of it. So if you don't feel that you are a part of this community, it's going to be very hard for you to communicate to them. It's going to be very hard to deliver what they want. It's going to be hard to create for them because you aren't part of it. You don't understand what they go to on a day to day. You don't understand how they think, how they act, how they behave. Like I said, with Fine Wine series, like a lot of things we do are things we want to do. You know what I mean? Things that we say, this would be cool if we did this, or imagine if we got to experience this in an event, or went through this experience, or wore this, or whatever the case is. So because we're able to resonate with it, and then obviously I bounce off a lot of ideas with our community, not even just the majority of the community, but just I might talk to my best friend or I might talk to my girlfriend or this person and say, what do you think about this? If it resonates with them, I'll expand that idea a little further, and if it resonates with them, now we know let's approach the community with this idea and see what they think. And that's kind of like how you do it. It's like market research is what they
Yeah.
call it, but really just asking for advice.
And I think that is such a beautiful advice because it's where a lot of entrepreneurs kind of struggle, and then they put a lot of money in marketing, they put a lot of money into like experiments, but what you're saying is really foundational, and it kind of is a solution that could help all of those other elements come into one piece and coexist and kind of come together. So really kind of thank you for sharing that word of wisdom with them as well. Now, before we wrap it up, even though your industry is people based and it's community based, but there's this kind of trait that we are approaching, and because we speak about technology a lot on the show, AI being a conversation that we cannot avoid and we cannot kind of escape. I wonder what that conversation is for you guys in your space. Like, do you talk about such things as AI, and what does the effects of AI have into your business and into your model? Like, yeah.
I think AI it is what you make it. If you lean into it, I think it can be very beneficial to what you're doing as long as you understand where to place it within your model or what you're doing. If you run away from it, it's probably going to catch up to you, and somebody's probably going to surpass you by using it. So we use AI often, and it's not crazy in my opinion because the way we use it is to enhance what we're doing, right? If we know we're collecting data per event. Instead of me trying to crack my head to figure out how many people like this, or I can literally upload it into AI to say, based on this data, what does this say about our audience? What do they want? And it'll give me a full, easy to read breakdown of, okay, your audience says they liked red wines versus white wines for this event. And this is in Atlanta, so maybe your Atlanta market is more wine drinkers than, and it could be something as simple as that. Or if we're, doing things like exploring different ideas, instead of trying to, spend 5 to 10 days trying to think of different ideas that fit this theme, you can roll a couple ideas into a chat GPT and say, hey, these are some of the ideas I'm thinking about. Can you complement these ideas with something more? Or how do you enhance these ideas, to kind of get, so the way I see it is, if you are not, or if you don't consider yourself all knowing, within this specific field or this specific topic in your business, then you can always, if you had the resources, bring in a consultant to help you get better with it or help you enhance whatever you're doing. And that's essentially sometimes what I think AI can be, is that consultant that you didn't have the money to pay.
That's good. And then be able to kind of take from that consultant in this kind of bracket to leverage for your own business, like leverage from a profit standpoint, because now you're not having to take profits to pay X and Y and Z. So, and they say that the people who are going to win in this AI race are the people that use AI. Not necessarily, you don't even have to build AI, but if you're able to leverage AI to your advantage, you are at a positive. You are on the good side of it. You're going to be able to win. So
Yeah.
there's
Don't get me
really, yeah.
I was gonna say, don't get me wrong, AI is great, I think, in that sense. But I think a lot of people fail to realize that you shouldn't actually rely fully on it, right? You, at the end of the day, are a human. You have human experiences. You go through things as a human within your community that AI can't experience. So, yes, AI may give you an idea, but at the end of the day, you need to have the discernment to say, okay, this is a good idea, but based on how I move, how I live, how my community is, this is how I'm going to apply it. I'm not going to just copy and paste, because at the end of the day, your community knows when you're being disingenuous about anything that you're doing. So be smart enough to understand that you don't rely 100% on it. It could be a good advisor, but even with people that give you advice, sometimes you don't listen to it to the T. You take what
Yeah.
they take, you take what you need to take, and you apply whatever applies.
And go a little bit further beyond to either confirm for yourself or fact check it, etc., which is really
Hmm.
important as well. We're gonna wrap it up soon. I know, we've been chatting about this for a minute now, but if you were to just like if you were to think about the word fine, right? I mean, in this day and age, we use fine for explaining and sharing about things that are, culturally relevant, things that are good. But what is your definition of fine? How do you what do you look at and say that's fine?
I mean, it's a lot, right?
Yeah.
The way I use fine regularly is I'm fine, meaning like I'm good. Like I say that very often, like I'm good.
Mm,
But I think that stems because you can say I'm fine and talk about I'm attractive and feel good about yourself. That's certain words of affirmation towards yourself. You can say I'm fine, or and talk about wellness, because mental health is a thing now. So you can speak about how well you are as a person, or how good you are as a person. You can say I'm fine, or I want the finer things, and talk about like something aspirational that you're reaching for, that you have or want to achieve. So there's a lot of different lanes you can go with the word fine.
but it just it makes sense. Like I really think it makes sense. It rhymes with wine, so it's like why not? It's just like perfect. Speaking of mental health, you were going to be speaking at an event this I think this coming weekend, which when this comes out it will have passed. But speaking at an event, PVO, about mental health. If you were to kind of talk about the importance, because you deal and handle and work with people a lot. And as a creative entrepreneur, there's a lot of stress that comes into making things happen. There's a lot of pressure that comes around that. So it really has an effect to your mental health. How do you manage that? How do you stay grounded and ensure that your mental health is in check while you are making people happy, curating things for other people that they come to your space to relax, to get, to forget and to for their mental health. So how do you make
Yeah.
sure that your mental health is in check as well, and you're taking care of yourself?
I mean, I do a lot of different things. I'm a trial and error kind of guy. Like I like to test things out. I like to try new things
Yeah.
sometimes. For me specifically, like recently at least, I've been swimming. So that's been a new hobby that I picked up recently. So swimming has been cool. I didn't realize all the benefits of it, until I started it, which is like you can't swim with your phone, clearly, right?
Mm.
So when you go swimming, you are completely cut off from everybody. So you're legit in the pool doing whatever you need to do, being active, doing practicing breathing techniques, whatever the case is, for a certain amount of time. That's been really helpful. I do meditate, I journal. I'll be real, like it's not every day. Like I want to do it every day, but life.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you fall off. Sometimes you got to get back on. So it's like whenever I get a chance, I do those things to kind of keep me grounded, and I don't try to take anything too like too heavily because I know like at the end of the day, if it's happened, it's happened, and God's gonna guide the way at the end of the day. So we're just gonna make sure we stay the path that we need to be, and we just walk where we need to go.
Yeah. And I mean, New York being such a high pressure city in all of itself, I always kind of do this exercise of checking in with people because it's
Yeah, you
it's
have to, have to.
yeah, yeah, because everyone is kind of handling something. You even see it in the
Hmm.
subway. It's just like I want to give you a hug, man. Like, are you okay? But you can't do that. New York does not,
Seriously,
but you can see that someone genuinely needs a hug. So
they do.
I'm glad that you're also prioritizing that as well and ensuring that you are taking care of yourself. To be able to take care of your business, you need to be well yourself, because they say, like, business, if you're not well, your business is not going to be well as well, and so you have to kind of do
That's
that
real.
that experience at the same time. Did I forget
That is.
anything that you want to make sure that you kind of touch base on to the audience about business, about this sector, or anything in between that you'd like to ensure that we unpack?
Yeah, I mean, I think the only thing to say is just being very transparent. Business is not as glamorous as they paint on social media. People make it seem like you get into a business, you put in a
Mm.
little bit of work, and everything happens for you the way it's supposed to happen. Business is literally never ending solving problems. Like never ending problem solving. Every day you're trying to figure out how to do more or how to get more or how to fix this problem or whatever the case is. So with business, just make sure that if you're not passionate about what you're doing, make sure you're passionate about the journey you're on at least, because it will show when you're not, and people will know like, okay, this isn't something that they really that resonates with them because you'll probably give up on it midway.
Yeah.
you know, just as long as you know this is something you truly want to do, dive into it. Give yourself an opportunity to build the foundation before going completely in, unless you have some sort of backing to make that happen. But definitely take your time to build, pay attention to what's going on in your business, optimize it, continuously improve, and just make things happen. Like that's the name of the game with business, and
Mm.
make things happen. It's not easy.
Yeah. I saw a post, I think, like today or yesterday. It's just like entrepreneurs are people who are just mentally unwell. Like,
Yeah, what insane.
like that's just,
We're insane.
yeah, like it's just a bunch of insane people just going on a tangent to make these things happen. But there's a beauty in that. I think there has to be an abnormality to how you function, to be able to choose that, to consistently choose that, because you have the option of
Hmm.
not doing that, right? You have the option of just being normal like everyone else. But this idea of carrying something and seeing it through, and making sure that even though things are going wrong and there's challenges, you're still going at it. There's something wrong with you in your mind, and that post was like, yeah.
Something is completely. There's a saying that I take with me like throughout like my years, and it's something along the lines of it's the possibility of a dream coming true that makes life worth living.
Mhm.
And that's kind of like how I look at things. It's like if I stop now, what happens if all I need to do get to tomorrow?
Yeah,
So it's like,
yeah.
that's how I look at it.
So we're gonna keep soldiering on. 2026 is around the corner. I truly am wishing you guys all of the best. How many? What's happening? What is the calendar looking like for 2026, so that we can start planning? So it does. What happened the last time where I saw videos online is not happening.
Yeah.
So what does the calendar look like for the new year? And where are things gonna be happening, etc.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So February is definitely happening. Our New York Fashion Week Winter Masquerade Ball, in Brooklyn, New York. That's gonna be our winter marquee event. And then our Fine Wine Festival is happening September 2026. So just look out for an official date, location drop, and theme drop for that. And then throughout the year, we're going to be showing up at a lot of tentpole cool moments, in the culture. So we'll be hosting like our High Notes events or some of our small activations and events throughout the year. So just look out for the brand. We're going to be busy this year.
I like booked and busy, because booked and busy means that things are going right, and that's what we like. That's what we like. And where do we find you? The Fine Wine series across social media, right? And your email, your website. If someone wants to write you a check, if someone's like, I want to write a check. I want to make sure that these guys are good. Where do they find you?
Find me, however, which way. But the website is finewineseries.com. The Instagram is at the Fine Wine Series, TikTok, X, Twitter, Threads, at Fine Wine Series. So, yeah, if you need me, just go to any of those platforms and reach out, and they'll make the connection.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I am for it. I mean, you mentioned earlier on that there's this idea of having to work with what you have, and it reminded me of a book by Seth Godin called The Practice, and this idea that the best entrepreneurs are made from this dichotomy of having to work with little but at the same time create much, and in that experience it really matures you as an entrepreneur. It makes the best entrepreneur, because if everything is just handed to you, or you just everything is just perfect, there's a bit of an unbalance in the entrepreneurship journey and what it's supposed to do to you. So you guys being able to have gone this far with with the little that you've been able to get, which we know that you deserve to get a lot more. You deserve to have a lot more to be able to do the work that you're doing at an exponential rate. So shout out to you guys for how far you've gone. As I said, it's all the way up from here. Can't wait to see where it goes. I'm definitely going to be heading over to the New York Fashion Week event. I saw it said you have to have your dress has to be neat. What is it, like to the floor? I was like, okay.
Yeah.
Now we have to start looking for the guard. So we'll definitely be there. But yeah, all the best, you guys. I'm really excited to see that there are people like yourselves who are literally doing the work and are doing it in a global perspective as well, and have global plans. So yeah, all the best.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me on the show today. That
Of
means a lot.
course, of course, and that's it. Again, there's something happening. Come back. We'll dissect more.
Will do.
If you have more happening and coming on the scene, I'll be happy to discuss that. But thank you so much, Dozie. Did I say your name correctly? Is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah, you can go. Trust me, I'll correct you in the beginning.
I know my name. I hear people say my name in all types of ways, so I always try and get people's names correctly. I've heard it all. I'm like, my name is 4 letters. Like, how do you get Vuyo right? But I get. Trust me, I've heard all of it. So I always try and get people's names quickly. But thank you so much again for joining us. And thank you to you at home for tuning in as well into this very fine conversation with this fine fella from New York City, Dozie. Oh, we'll see you all on the next episode. And again, don't forget to go check out the Fine Wine series across social media to stay plugged in on what's happening in the city around you. Dozie, have a good one, and have a good one at home. See you next
You too.
episode. Cheers.